People give me funny looks all the time. I mean, extra funny looks. Start with Bill Doyle as usual.
Hi, Bill.
Hi. Brad, I just wondered what you told your team after the game with the season over.
Well, that's it. At halftime, I was obviously disappointed in our defensive effort. I knew, just look out there. We were undermanned a little bit, but I thought we could play better defensively, and I thought we came out in the second half with a great deal of spirit and fight, a little bit more aggressiveness, and it was great until we were worn out, and I thought we wore out. We didn't have any juice in the last 10 minutes or so prior to that little run at the end. Credit them; they put us in a world of hurt in a lot of different matchups, and it's a good basketball team who's playing well right now, who, as I said earlier, is really sitting pretty for the future because they've got really good players at the 1 and the 2 that are both very young, that have a chance to be elite at their positions.
You've talked about what you take away from this season, but what do you want your players to take away from a year like this?
Well, so there's a couple of different ways to look at it. Are you going to get better in your role, or are you going to expand your role? What I mean by that is, are you going to get better at what you do well, or are you going to get better at some other things that make you, that give you a chance to, instead of be the 8th guy, be the 5th guy, instead of be the 5th guy, be the 3rd guy. We have a lot of great data to be able to share, and subjective thoughts as well. And, I think we can get better with the guys in the room. I think we clearly are going to need to add to our team to be better. But, I told them at halftime, I said, we've got to, we started on October 1st, or we can start it right now. And we've got to have a defensive DNA to start next season at a little bit different level than I thought we did at the end of this season. I thought we tried to compete defensively early on in the year. I didn't think we made the strides that I would have liked to have made.
Coach, why did Brandon Bass deserve the Red Auerbach Award?
Well, first of all, Brandon Bass hurt his foot a little bit in the 3rd quarter, tweaked it, and I would have put it back in, and Kelly would have fouled out. But because Kelly didn't foul out, I didn't want to risk that with him, especially when the score was what it was with start of the 4th quarter. The reason, and I just told him this in front of the team, he's as good of a pro as we have. Shows up every day. He's the first one to the gym on the road. He's the first one at the gym at home. He takes care of his body as well or better than any of our players on the team, nutrition-wise, stretching-wise, in the weight room, and his individual workouts are deliberate to what applies to making his game good. And I don't think everybody that works on the game anywhere in the world do those things as well as some of the best pros. And I think we need to really embrace that deliberate work ethic all around the way, and Brandon Bass is a great example of that for our team.
The first thing you see is the players and how they perform, but what do you think you and your coaching staff can do to improve in the offseason going into next season?
Well, we're going to be doing everything we can. I mean, we're going to be doing everything from film review to what coaches do to thinking about who we have, how can we play different or tweak this or tweak that defensively, offensively. I mean, those are things you think about in every day anyways, but just because you even take a break doesn't mean you're not thinking about it. I've got a couple of coaches that may end up coaching overseas some in the FIBA events. And then obviously our staffs will be very active with our draft process and all the individual workouts that guys will be doing, and also summer league.
Brad, how were you able to? Obviously, the split is probably the second half of the season with a personnel standpoint and nutrition due to injuries more than it was kind of just relenting. How are you able to keep the guys kind of motivated, especially in the last month when it got real tough and the bodies were short, et cetera?
Yeah, first of all, I'm really, I thought they really competed, the better part of, 3 of the last 4 games. A lot of teams may not have with not knowing their season's over on Wednesday. They have a lot to play for. Gary, I think everything matters. We talk about that as a team, and that's kind of the rallying cry going into the off season is every little thing you do matters. If Kelly Olynyk is a better player next year because of his last 3 games, the last 3 games were critically important. If Phil Pressey's a better player because of the last 3 out of 4 games that he started, critically important. And I think that's part of development, as we all have talked about. You can develop in a lot of ways, but it was good to see them produce. So I think that's the bottom line is, Gary, we all have something we're all shooting for something, and every single day and every single effort you put into it matters towards achieving it. This is really not fun to lose. And, we've had our moments of tasting winning against some good teams. We've had our moments of letting some games get away. And you hope to learn from all of those and not let the bad things happen again.
Right, what are the lasting impressions that you take away from this group?
Well, I think, Mark, I think they did I think we can get better. I think we can get better. I am, unlike you would think at the end of a season like this, I'm not concerned that we aren't going to strive to get better, if that makes sense. I think that we will work. I think their work ethics are good. I think their coachability is pretty good. And I think that the one thing that they never really did, maybe here or there was a line or two. You all know better than I do because you're the ones asking them. They never really splintered. Things like this can splinter you pretty easily. And they stayed together pretty well as far as, standing up for one another and being a team and, not pointing blame. And, it's been a pretty good group in that regard. And that gives you a chance to improve. It's the old adage that you can't improve without accountability. And so that gives you a chance moving forward.
Why do you think they were able to do that and kind of push that splinter?
I think there's good character in that room. I think there's I think that the assistant coaches did a great job. All of you that come early, watch every day, you see what they do before the game, but you see what they're doing, the shoot around day earlier, and the strength guys, and everybody working together. And everybody treated it like the first day of the season all season. And I think that's a good sign because you're going to be even better when you're a contender in that regard because your juice is going to flow even more. But I didn't see any slippage with anybody's work. That was good.
Brad, what was your proudest moment of the season?
I don't know. I think I have to take some time and think about that. I don't think in terms of necessarily certain games or it's just seeing certain moments of individuals make plays that they're making progress. I think back to we're on a 9-game losing streak, and Sullinger gets 3 straight offensive rebounds out of the gate against Toronto to open up the second half on a possession where we can't score. Ends up putting the 3rd one in. That's progress. That's something to point towards. That's something that you can rally around. That's something that you can always talk about. Philly diving on the floor the other day and making that play. There's all kinds of little things like that. I don't think there's one that really stands out. And I think most seasons there won't be one that stands out.
Brad, along those lines, what did you learn about yourself first year in the NBA?
You don't have that much time. You don't have that much
Reader's
time.
Digest version?
I think the best, I think the best thing I learned is that, that it's not fun to not win, but it doesn't define who you are or how you go about your business. And so one of the things that I'm probably most happy about with our team and is that they didn't change necessarily who they were. They didn't let the losing or the multiple losses affect them or their approach. And I hope that I was the same way. So maybe that going forward. Then I learned a lot about the NBA game and how it's played, and it's a different kind of basketball. Ron Adams told me at the beginning of the year, he said, if I went and coached high school after 22 years coaching the NBA, I wouldn't know what's going on. It's 32 minutes. It's no shot clock. It's I'd have to really adjust to that. And I think that's probably true no matter which way you go. But it is an adjustment. The easiest part, not the easiest, but the part I felt most comfortable was in the game. Once we got used to the timeouts and the 24-second clock and all that other stuff.